person with the funds is not any more advantaged than you. What I mean is, you are the one, the storyteller with the talent. You have what the rest of us don't have. And that's so special. You have leverage, it turns out.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Lee. I'm the Director of Artist Development. I am an Asian woman with shoulder length, actually mid-chest length hair, wearing black and white top and black pants. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone's jazzed about talking about money. Yeah, well, we only have, as Maria said, very short time, so let's dive into it. I'd love for our esteemed guests to tell us a little bit about their work in film and what they're looking for and what they're choosing to get involved in, and we'll dive in from there. Nicole?
I'm Nicole. I'm a pretty short white lady with chin-length gray hair, and I'm wearing a denim jacket and black jeans and a gray top. I work across independent film, what I call independent television and theater here in LA. I guess I'm always looking for really great material like everybody else. I think I'm probably drawn to more unusual projects. I love every genre, really, and I'm looking to work more internationally. Because I think that's the business. I think that's where the business is going. Yeah. Is that good? Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julia Nelson. I am a Caucasian woman in blue pants and a white top with curly brown hair. I am basically the in-house financing and packaging and sales agent at 2AM. Should I speak about 2AM? It's a multifaceted company with a production arm, management arm, and my area, which we can talk a lot more about soon. We're best known for movies like Past Lives, Materialists, and Baby Girl. On the client side, we rep probably 80 or so different kinds of artists. A lot of them are writer-directors, people like Janixa Bravo and Matt Spicer, and bridging into different kinds of talent representation with actors like Jamie Lawson, musicians like Dominic Fike and Remy Wolf. And then my area, financing and sales, is really all about identifying exciting new opportunities. So they're not 2AM produced films, not client projects, but working on films that have come to us from producers or filmmakers that we're really excited about helping to raise the financing for and eventually represent for sales. And my background is coming from the Sundance Catalyst world, which is how I met Angela. So I'm very excited to be holding a microphone on stage because I really miss that part of my job.
Hi, I'm Nina with Film Mississippi. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I am half Indian, half Filipino, full Mississippian. I have chest length, dark brown, black hair, black and cream colored tunic type top, and orangey red pants and gray sneakers. So I am curious how many people in the audience has ever worked with a film office or film commission by a raise of hands? Okay, a decent number, so some people know what we do. I do think that we live in a time where people don't understand that the government actually can help. Most film offices around the world are government run. They could be nonprofits, and they are in jurisdictions. They can be country, state, city, county. In my case, we are Film Mississippi, so we represent the whole state. And one of my colleagues is here too, Ryan Parker. Raise your hand, Ryan, somewhere all the way in the back, so find us throughout the days. So the first thing that we do is we can help you with locations, figuring out if we're the right place for your project. Secondly, what we do is we try to help you with our incentive program. Many jurisdictions around the world have incentive programs that you've heard about, tax credits, you've heard about cash rebates and grants. Our incentive program is a cash rebate, which is very straightforward. You will spend the money in Mississippi. The Department of Revenue will do a full audit within 90 days of turning in your information. The Department of Revenue will do a first review, and if it's perfect, you will get a check. If you decide that there are a couple things that they disqualified and you want to talk back and forth about that, it may take longer. But that's pretty quick turnaround for money back into your pocket that maybe goes toward post or marketing.
Or investors.
Or investors, yeah, wherever it needs to go. And just to give you a little sense of projects that have been in Mississippi, All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt, the inspection, the card counter, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? We have a show called Hometown, which is on HGTV. It's in season 10. I produced a film. I took a leave of absence and produced a film called Ballast that did well in the indie world. Thank you. And then outside of that, I also serve on the board of the AFCI, which is the Association of Film Commissioners International. So, while you're looking at me here sitting as Film Mississippi, I also want to make sure that all of you know that there is a resource that you can go to. So no matter where you work in the world, there's probably someone there that can help you.
Hi, I want to thank Film Independent for having me here. My name is Quintos Cathcart. I am a short Filipina American woman who is wearing a striped green sweater set and boots. I am an independent film financier. That we can get into that later, but I co-founded a company called Unapologetic Projects in 2023. Before that, I was on the inspection, which is so funny. Yeah, I was one of the EPs on the inspection. So I love to hear that. But we look to center underrepresented creators who are telling authentic stories. That's our mandate. It's a macro goal for us that we have our characters be as flawed and complex as white straight characters have gotten to be for a very long time on stage and screen. Yeah, I guess that's primarily what I do. We can get into it in a little bit.
Hi, I'm Brenda Robinson. I'm a recovering entertainment attorney. I practiced for 20 years in music first, then film and television. And in the course of being an attorney, I was encountering a lot of producers and production companies, investors, financiers, and I was representing them in their deals. And then, as is always the case with entertainment attorneys, you get bitten by the bug and you say, I'd like to try this, I'll take a little risk. And so I started that slow process of transitioning out of the practice and coming to the other side, which I'm enjoying very much. And so I've been an equity financier in both docs and narratives. I've been a grant funder into docs. I've been a creative EP myself. I've packaged, bundled, done everything possible to try to get projects to the finish line, mentor and an advocate. And I too was a part of Game Changer Films when the fund financed the inspection. By the way, all of us have chatted at one point or another about projects, and that's how this collaboration works is, we all kind of link arms to try to figure out how we can share resources to get great projects to the finish line. And when I look at projects, I really see it as a blessing that I even get exposed to these great stories. And, for me, it starts from a place of trust. It's not just the power of the story, but it's also the relationship with the film team. And so most private funders seem to approach the process that way, that it's less about the transaction. And there's practical reasons, first of all. I don't think any private funder or philanthropist should approach film finance as a transaction. This is not real estate where you're flipping houses. Nobody is retiring off of this. It's not the mentality that you should have coming into this. It starts from a place of wanting to uplift. It is really getting behind someone's ascension. And we find that to be very fulfilling that we can be a part of that. What comes back to the funder, if you end up recouping your investment, it goes into the next project. And this is how we keep the ecosystem balanced. I'm currently part of a group called Impact Partners, which is a film financing collective out of New York that has members all around the world, and we pool our resources to fund primarily nonfiction film, and then separately I will get pitches all the time from the agencies or managers or other producers or financiers, showing me really incredible scripted pieces. And so in this particular marketplace, we're going through a period of contraction, of consolidation, and frankly, we're just in a fraught political moment where it's really tough sometimes to get that yes from people who are willing to invest. On the distribution side, not everything is getting picked up right away. In this golden age that we went through where, going to a festival guaranteed that you would get distribution. So it's keeping people on the line. That's what we're focused on at this point. It's just maintaining faith in the process, and that really starts with a sincerity on the part of the investor that we are here to try to be additive to this process. And it also requires trust on the part of the filmmaker, that you don't see the investors just someone who can write a check. It's critical that you see them as someone who is your partner. I like to think of it as, I always tell filmmakers, form your board of directors early in your career. This is your slate of angels that is not only supposed to fund this project, but in theory, they should have a great experience with you in relationship where you can go back to them and you can start to just keep them. And this is certainly how I've gotten through the industry as well. It's just making sure that you see people as a whole person, not as a dollar sign, but as someone who actually cares and has sincere intentions about being your partner, not just the check writer.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the awesome introduction. I love the intersection of the inspection, which we also heavily supported in artist development. So you can see, please check out our artist development programs if you aren't familiar with them already. We dived into a lot of different topics already, even in the introduction. And I know our audience is a mix of fiction, nonfiction filmmakers, domestic, international filmmakers. How you put projects together is different from each one. A doc filmmaker might have been mostly reliant on grant funding, and fiction films may have been more reliant on equity financing. And international filmmakers are more reliant on international co-productions. And I would say that probably each of those filmmakers thinks that all of those revenues are like shrinking. So, but because it's different, let's talk really briefly about what that means so everyone understands. So could one of our esteemed panelists share what equity is and how it works?
It's an investment into a project that comes with a premium upon return. So
On average,
20%, I would say.
okay,
Can be variable.
could be variable.
The way I've spoken to my kids about what I do is someone makes a cake for $5, I give them that $5. We together sell it for 10, hopefully, and then figure out, that split ahead of time.
Awesome. Grant funding or soft monies. Why don't we start more on grant funding? Brenda, you've worked in that space.
Sure, so it's very philanthropic, obviously, but it's non-recoupable funding, and it's truly meant to be that. The business model is changing for all films, but as Angela mentioned, on the documentary side, obviously that's more common, though you are starting to see equity coming in part because it's actually getting recouped. And so that's very positive because it just means it brought more people into this space. And again, everyone came in thinking there's an opportunity to be a participant and to keep this ecosystem going, then sign me up. And so that's how that model evolved. On the scripted side, obviously, you're mostly dealing with equity financing, but grant funding is starting to creep into scripted films as well, which is also positive. Some of it is because some people genuinely believe that, depending on the issue, they just want to be involved to try to offset some of the other equity that may be in that production. And others, it's just simply this: I care about this, I see it as part of my filmanthropy, and so I get involved and there's no expectation. So the key is that all of these things are starting to trickle into the larger model of financing for films.
Can you talk about the use of fiscal sponsorship as it relates to grant funding?
Says the person in charge of our fiscal sponsorship. Yeah, I have the sweetest story. Early on in my career, I was representing some emerging filmmakers, and they were telling me that we got into, like the IDA for fiscal sponsorship. We won, and I said, oh, no, it's not money. It's a way to filter money through. But as you all know, and Angela's deeply involved in this at Film Independent, we have a very robust fiscal sponsorship program. It's essentially when an organization accesses the 501c3 charity for the giving that comes from the funder. So in other words, if there's a project that we're housing, that we're supporting under our umbrella, a donor might come in and give a grant say $100,000, and they'll grant it to Film Independent, and then we give it to the project. And the idea is that the funder gets the benefit of that tax deduction because they've donated it to a 501c3 instead of directly to the production. That's a great way to incentivize people to give, because it can literally be a direct part of their philanthropy. But any good fiscal sponsorship program is obviously about more than the money. We're very proud of what we do here at Film Independent because it's about the experience. One will get their funds for their film, but they also get guidance and mentorship. They get promotion. There are other things that we do to make sure that that film is seeing more life than just getting the funding. And most fiscal sponsorship programs that are out there, they endeavor to do that. They try to provide more resources beyond just passing the money through. But meaningful projects, we make sure that we are looking at the whole set of needs of that production and not just, and that is how we are creating this mentality shift that this financing game has to be about so much more than the money for this to continue to work and be sustainable in this industry.
I would just add in, to be clear, anyone who pays taxes in the US can contribute to a fiscal sponsor, right, contribute to a project, and get a tax deduction. And so I say this to emphasize that this works for nonfiction films and fiction films, and also international filmmakers. It's actually an interesting, I think, opportunity for international filmmakers who have contacts in the US, who have business interests in the US, who have financial interests in the US, to donate to their projects through a fiscal sponsor, whether it be Film Independent or any number of great organizations within the US, and something very important for you to consider and have in your toolbox of financing. Julie, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add, in case there are people in the audience who are newer to this space, to be very clear, equity is money that needs to be paid back to your investor with a premium. Grant money, fiscal sponsorship money, that's donated money towards the film. So that does not need to be paid back. That's recoupable versus non-recoupable. A non-recoupable grant is something that does not need to be paid back. And grants can take all different shapes and sizes. You know, you can get large grants from high net worth individuals who donate privately to your project, either directly or through a fiscal sponsor. You can get grants from grant-making institutions like the Ford Foundation, for example, or you could build, smaller, more grassroots style grants and get people to donate smaller sums through your fiscal sponsor to manage that.
And just to further complicate things, if I may, just kidding. With equity, that there is an expectation that you would recoup should the film sell. But there is a deep understanding that that is the risk. And so it's important for the filmmakers and funders to recognize that, so that you don't come in strong-arming each other. Hopefully, in an ideal market, money put into a film comes back. But there is actual language in the contracts that make it very clear that as an investor, you are signing up for that risk. So a lot of filmmakers get nervous about it, and I want to make sure I make this point that when we say you have to do this or money has to come back or the contract says it comes back if it comes back. It's as simple as that. So the hope is that it will, but never be afraid to take in equity, because any smart investor, any sophisticated investor knows you are signing up for the chance that it will come back. And there's many different ways to mitigate risk to make sure that that happens. You sign up for a film that you care about with a great team that will tell a great story, that has a great shot at getting to a festival, that this is a timely topic. Those are all the soft factors that factor into any analysis of whether or not you should get involved in something. No one can control the marketplace or life. So we all go in this together taking the risk. But there is an understanding that it is that, and we accept it. On the grant side, used to be the case, when PBS was funding all the films, it literally was not expected to come back. So a grant, by definition, is soft money. There's a new form of grant many of you have probably heard of called a program-related investment. It's funny that word is creeping into this equation. There are new ways to structure grants now where those technically could be recoupable, and all of us have dealt with those. Again, that's a situation where a foundation might say, I'll give you this money, and if there's a chance that it might come back in some way, perhaps I'll take it back, but maybe not at the 20% premium or interest. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 5%. Maybe it's just break even. And the point is I just want the foundation to just continue to keep the ecosystem going. But that's a new way that some funders are approaching grant making. So they know if it doesn't come back, we're good with that. But if it can come back, I'll take it and I'll put it into the next project. So that's a new form of granting.
Chris, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to build off of that, I view it as part of my job to make sure that this $5 cake will be sold for $10. So that comes down to casting, that comes down to who I'm working with. You know, I want to look at the director's cut. I have notes. You know, I just want to make sure we're going to be able to sell it for $10. That being said, I also want to say, I'm not sure where everyone is in their careers. A lot of the projects that come to me, I specifically do, our money goes to production financing. So by the time a script has come to me, there is a lot of soft money that has probably already gone into it. It's gone through every lab possible. It's probably been granted so that, you know, for drafts, and I don't need to tell anybody how long this process is. Dee by the time it came to me, was 7 years in the works. Yeah, so it's all a big pot that we all work in together.
And to give a shout out to another film that you're involved in, All That We Love, that we also supported in Fast Track many years ago, finally got distribution. So congrats on that. I want to just move, Nina, can we talk a little bit about, go into a little bit more about incentives and rebates, the differences between those two?
Sure. So I'll talk about Mississippi because we have a cash rebate to start. A cash rebate it's cold, hard cash.
The best.
For real. And unlike the money that they're talking about, which generally comes on the front end of a project, our money is going to come on the back end of a project. But it is mostly guaranteed. I mean, if you spend the money in Mississippi, you should get a check back for at least 25 to 35% of what you spent in Mississippi. So the 25% is on whatever you spend with vendors, businesses in Mississippi, 25% on your non-resident payroll. So those of you, I assume most of you in this room are not Mississippi residents. So if you work in Mississippi, you still will get a rebate on the work, the money that you're paid for the work that you do in Mississippi. If you hire non-residents, it's 30%. If those residents are veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, it's 35%. I like to joke that Morgan Freeman should be on every single one of our ads because he is both a resident and a veteran. And he does like to work at home. So cast Morgan Freeman and come to Mississippi. So you'll apply 4 to 6 weeks, at least 4 to 6 weeks before you come to Mississippi so that we can say, yes, we vetted this. You're going to give us your budget, the script. It's a pretty straightforward application process. It's on our website. We'll approve that, the date of that approval date, anything that you spend from that moment forward will qualify in the state. When you're finished with your work in Mississippi, and that could be at the end of production or it could be at the end of post-production, then you will submit to the Department of Revenue. They'll do a line-by-line audit, and as I said, 90 days you'll get a first review, and at that point you could get a check. So that's a cash rebate.
90 days.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm sure some people have worked in other states where it might take up to 5 years before you get your money back.
That's true, and
won't name any names. But
Oftentimes that's with a tax credit, because that's tied to filing your taxes. Is there somebody there? Do you have a tax liability there where it makes sense, or are you selling that, brokering it?
Can you go into a little bit more details of what that looks like? So
I'm actually interested in y'all talking about that, if you've worked with tax credits or tax liabilities, because I don't come from that since I'm a cash rebate state. And I'm wondering if y'all have had that experience with a credit or in another state.
Yeah, I don't aspire to be a boots-on-the-ground producer. I will tell you that right now. So I let the team handle that. But as far as the decision-making for where we're going to shoot something this is a big part of it, because obviously it's all money back. So that lowers the budget, the net versus the gross. So yeah, we're very, very incentivized by your shooting location being like one that has great tax credits.
I think the point that we just want to clarify is like rebates, you get the cash back versus a credit where you probably have to use a broker and find, someone to buy it at a cost. And all of this, though, still you have to get the money cash flowed. None of this is cash up front to make your project. So you actually need to figure out another investor or a lender, which with added fees and whatnot to cover that, correct?
And oftentimes, there are producers that are going to a lender, to a bank, and they are borrowing against our rebate. So we give you a letter, a commitment letter that says, if you spend X, you will get this back. And then the bank or the lender will look at it and go, okay, well, I will lend against that because I know that works.
Oh, go ahead, Julia.
You can also get investors to either lend against or invest in your entire, what's called your gross budget. And that gross basically means total, inclusive of any anticipated rebate or credit or any other special funds like that. The net budget is, the your total budget minus that money. So if you get investors to finance your entire gross budget ahead of production, the rebate will come back to you all and will flow through the project back to investors as a first return.
If you're not, you can go to afci.org and you'll see all of the film offices there, and you'll see, what incentives exist. But you can also
Association of Film Commissioners International.
Thank
Just
you.
in case you missed that AFCI.
But also your payroll companies, EP, cast and crew, et cetera, they all, Green Slate, they're all aware of the incentives that exist around the world. They also know us as film offices, so they will pair you up appropriately. So for example, we have some of the payroll companies that always send like horror films our way because they're lower budgeted. They're, they get their funding pretty quickly, and then they get their rebate back pretty quickly. So, they know they're good matchmakers, those payroll companies.
Going in a different
consultants.
direction, Nicole, casting, packaging, such another integral part of financing these days. Can you talk a little bit about when is best to bring you on and how best to work to leverage talent? Are actors like signing up these days sooner rather than later or not?
It's a really tricky time. I think the time to bring a casting director on, you should definitely have your producing team involved. Sometimes people come to me as a writer-director without producers, thinking like, well, I can start on casting even though I don't have producers yet. And I would advise against that because your producers are, well, first they're a really important part of the puzzle to me, because you can have a great script and a really interesting director, and if you don't have a great producer, it's really hard to move things forward. I always say I would rather work with a great director, a great producer and a good director than a good producer and a great director.
Agreed.
Thank you for the producing
Same.
love.
Also, your producer is going to be the one who hopefully is really strategizing in terms of where your film fits in the marketplace, where they see the film ending up, how you're going to get there. They're going to be the person that knows about the incredible opportunities available to you if you film in Mississippi. And that's not part of my job. I think people often sort of think that there's some magical list somewhere of 10 actors, and if you get one of those 10 actors, money will just fall from the sky. And it's just not that way anymore. There's more kind of, I don't want to say niche, more kind of specialized content that really finds its way into the marketplace because it has a very specific audience, and you know how to really reach that audience. So sometimes in those cases, casting is, I'm always going to say casting is super important because it's what you're looking at on the screen are those people and those faces, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that needs to be, Tom Cruise and Jodie Foster and, every famous person. We've all seen films recently that have ended up doing really well that don't have anybody famous in them. So just to back up, that's why having sort of producers on board who really understand your film and where it's going is really important. I think it's an incredibly difficult I mean, there's never been an easy time to get people to read things that aren't financed. That's just the way it is. It's really hard to get attention from anybody in the marketplace. But sort of understanding your project and where it sits really, really helps me do my job, because in a lot of cases, I'm really the first person pitching your film, because agents don't read scripts. Sorry, folks. They're really just going off of a deck and my spin on it, basically.
Can I just add real quick that in any film office, for the most part, particularly in Mississippi, we're project agnostic. I mean, I mentioned horror, but it could be anything. So different from everybody else, we don't care. Like, just come see us.
Chris, I'm really curious, when projects come to you, how are you responding, knowing that there's upheaval and distribution and all of that? Like, what's drawing your eye and what's financing, and how important is cast to you?
Casting is very important, I think, because it all needs to work together. Oftentimes, a great producer will say, we're in conversation with X, Y, and Z. These actors, are no one's promised anything, but we're in conversation, and then they, I imagine, go to them and say, we're in conversation with Chris. So it all works together. Like, all of these things we all kind of say yes at the same time. So casting is very important. You said, I was like,
and then just like in this marketplace, what are you looking? What are the types of films that you're open to? Are you following trends? Do you want to buck trends?
Yeah, I see why I blacked the question out. It was the marketplace. Okay. I think that it was mentioned earlier that I'm not in this to become rich. I think there are other places to invest your money. And Teresa, who runs Leyline, talks a little bit about ROI being return on impact, and that has been like a guiding light for me as well. I think I have a unique background in that I am an artist first and foremost, so I've been an actor-writer pretty much my entire career until I pivoted to what I'm doing right now. And so I am driven by storytelling, and I am driven by access, sharing the access that I have with others, and that's why our mandate is what it is. So I don't want to say I try not to think about the marketplace because that's not true. Like I said, now my job is to help us get that cake to 10. But I am more driven by what I think we can pull off. So the vision, the voice, the team, the strong production team. By the time you've gotten to me, I've read you. I've read the script, so I like it. And really what is important to me is that, and I think this is my background as an actor, having met like 1 million directors and producers, I need to be able to know that I can write you $1 million check and I'm gonna get a movie on the other side of that. Like, I just need to trust that you can do this. And I'm not gonna be there holding your hand every day. So that's really what's important to me. Access to stories that I think haven't been told. Maddie's Secret, which just premiered at TIFF, was a wild pitch, but I read the script, I loved it. I'm a fan of John Early, and I just knew, I couldn't believe it was his directorial debut. His comps were Marnie and made-for-TV movies, and I was like, yes. Like, I just knew that was something that hadn't been said, hadn't been done, and yeah, it just appealed to my artistic side.
Amazing.
That is a very unique approach to comping. I love it.
That worked. We have to move on to the pitches, but let's see, because we're a pitch panel, can everyone share a brief insight on intel advice that you have on a pitch that works for you, or especially like Nicole, we'll start off with you, but you're like, you need to be able to pitch to your actors, so what's helpful to you in helping distill that?
That's a really hard question.
Sorry.
I think getting a sense of the makers from the pitch. So it's not, it's not a dry, like, what's great about this chair is it, helps your posture. You really, we can see why is it you telling this story.
Perfect. Julia?
My very quick advice would be it's really important to, keep things pretty concise. I think that a lot of time when I hear pitches and someone is kind of walking me through the story on a granular level, I'll read your script if I'm intrigued. And, the job of the pitch is really to give a broader sense of the shape of the story, the shape of the characters, and, who are the people making the film. And one more specific piece of advice I have for people is to really try and be explicit about the tone of your movie. I feel like sometimes even when you're reading a script, it's hard to understand the tonal intention. So as, clear and direct you can be about that is really helpful in guiding your audience and how to understand the material.
As I mentioned, it doesn't really matter to us. You're not really pitching to us. But that said, if we get a better sense of place in the same way, sense of tone, that's helpful to us. Yes, we have incentive programs that we want to share with you and give you money, be an investor. But we also have soft money too, soft incentives where we can help you location scout, we can connect you to the crew, we can do some research for you. There are a lot of different things that we can do for you. So if we have a better sense of place, like where does this take place? Is this a Southern story? Is it an American story? I mean, does it take place in Puerto Rico? Can we be Puerto Rico for you? There's a movie called Get On Up, and it's about James Brown, and none of it takes place in Mississippi. We were Boston, we were Paris, we were Georgia, we were everywhere around the world. So tell us, yes, we're going to read it, but if you have a connection to Mississippi, if you have a connection to the South, let us know those details, and we will put in 200% energy to help you get to the finish line and make it in Mississippi.
Like I mentioned earlier, if you're pitching me, I like the script, so I can tell you the plot. I don't think you need to tell me the plot. So let's not do that. Yeah, I think it's just like I said, trusting the team. Like, this is the team that can pull this miracle off, because that's what all films are, really. And I think having been on the other side of the veil, it's thin. and I think to sort of say, I'm looking for you just as badly as you're looking for me. I want this pitch to win. I want to make a movie. So let it be yours.
Love that. And seconding all that, I take it a few steps back and ask first, is this a movie? That's a question you really need to think about. Is this something that actually should be made into a film? There's a lot of ideas that are out there. You really have to do the work as a creative to decide if this is actually something you could turn into 90 minutes or a series. And then think about the format. And just be open that can shift. I think funder and filmmaker have to come in prepared for that. How many stories have we been involved in, or projects where started as a feature, moved to a short, and it got made and it got out there, Maybe that was the precursor to the next piece. Or you get into a say documentary and you realize I'm not going to be able to do this in 90 minutes, and it becomes a multi-part series. On the scripted side, that question of just, could I tell this story and actually captivate an audience? Is this important right now for us to be talking about? Is this timely? Is this something that's going to have an impact to move the needle on some issue that's important to me? And can I capture that in 90 minutes? So I often ask, go back in the process and make sure this is a film. And then once you get to that stage, you'll hear this all throughout your career, that you are obviously the most passionate person about the material. But it's something that I don't think it's too obvious to state, because we sometimes lose track of that as we get further in the process and start to think, okay, I just need to get this done. So by the time you're getting to the pitch, you're outlining, okay, this is a story, this is how much it costs, and this is what I need from you. And that other element of, I really want to make this. And I think you're a good partner for this. Remember, you're inheriting all these people onto your project. So I want to almost say, you can get yourself to the place where you almost can approach it as, you are also at an advantage in this process, believe it or not. Like, the person with the funds is not any more advantaged than you. What I mean is, you are the one, the storyteller with the talent. You have what the rest of us don't have. And that's so special. You have leverage, it turns out. The funder can give you the resources, but there's admiration that goes into that. And sometimes the wrong funder doesn't communicate that, and maybe they don't belong in the business. But those of us who care about this ecosystem, we're working just as hard as you are to weed those insincere people out on both sides. This has to be something that is fulfilling for all of us. If you're going to take that risk, we all have to link arms and decide, this is what I want to be doing right now. All the problems in the world, all the things we could be focused on, you have to decide together and not as separate sides that this is something we should be doing. So you communicate that passion, move away from the transactional aspects of it, and decide, I want to do this, and I've done my homework, I've researched and vetted. I'm not going to bring you on as an EP when you become part of my brand now of the film. You become part of my journey. I don't want to inherit anything that doesn't fit what I'm trying to do. The funder doesn't want to get into something where they don't belong. So remember, both of you have to come to that decision together.
Thank you so much. Really quick comment, because we have to move.
Yeah, just a quick button on what Brenda said, which I think is so spot on. I think it's really, not necessarily in like the stage pitching format, but when you are having a conversation with someone, I think it's really important to understand who you are pitching to and why they might be compelled to join your project. So I really encourage people to learn about the person on the other side, be solicitous, ask questions, and I think, Brenda and Chris both touched on people having different motivations. Some investors do want to return. That's why they invest in movies. Some investors are looking to launch careers or get behind a specific film because it helps evangelize an issue. So really asking, being direct, and also learning about somebody and why they might want to support your project is a really important part of the process as well.
Thank
And
you. It's like,
very
is it a return on investment? Is it a return on impact? Is it a return on experience? What is it they're looking for? Thank you so much to our guests for this first conversation. I hope everyone took something out of it that's useful.